No way, Bengals fans. The Cincinnati Bengals just kicked off the season 1-0 with a huge road win in Cleveland against the Browns. After years of heartbreak in this matchup, the Bengals finally came out on top. And today, we're breaking down exactly which unit carried the load and deserves the most credit for this victory. Now, before we dive into the latest Bengals news, make sure you subscribe to the channel, drop a like, and hit that bell icon so you never miss updates from the jungle. All right, let's get into it. This game wasn't pretty. In fact, there were plenty of moments where it looked like the same old story. Bengals fans holding their breath, thinking another lead might slip away. But this time was different. This team bent, but they didn't break. Final score, 17-6. Sure, the Browns made mistakes with missed kicks and costly penalties. But let's give credit where it's due. The Bengals' defense stood tall. This was the biggest question mark heading into the game, and they answered it loud and clear. Against a Cleveland offense that had its chances deep in Bengals territory, the defense forced mistakes, made stops, and set the tone for the win. And that's the story today. This Bengals defense deserves the spotlight. When people say the Browns don't have much of an offense, sure, that's true on paper, but it doesn't matter. In the NFL, one play can flip a game completely. And that's exactly why the Bengals defense deserves so much credit for locking it down. At the top of that effort, Trey Hendrickson. This is exactly why the Bengals kept him around. His sack came at the perfect time, forcing Cleveland into a field goal attempt they couldn't convert. Without that play, who knows how this game swings? That's the kind of difference a true game changer makes, stepping up when everything is on the line. Now, while the pressure up front wasn't as consistent as fans might have hoped, there were still standout performances across the board. Shemar Stewart proved he's more than just a body in the trenches. Graded as one of the best run defenders, showing real toughness against Cleveland's ground attack. Then you've got Dax Hill. Coming back from injury, he showed flashes of exactly why coaches were so high on him, sticking tight in coverage and proving he hasn't lost a step. Add in B.J. Hill holding strong in the middle and Jordan Battle making some key tackles in open space. Even after a rocky preseason, and suddenly you see a defense with depth, not just star power. This wasn't about one hero. It was about multiple guys stepping up in key moments to protect that lead and seal the win. Momentum. That's the word that keeps coming to mind after this one. The Bengals' defense finally showed the kind of resilience fans have been waiting to see. And listen, I don't care if the opponent was the last ranked offense in the league or the number one unit in football. When you line up on Sundays, you have to stop whoever's in front of you. That's exactly what Cincinnati did. The mentality was clear. Bend, but don't break. This defense gave up some yards, but when it mattered most, deep in their own territory, they slammed the door shut. If they can maintain that edge all season long, the Bengals don't need to be a top 5 defense. They just need to be reliable enough to carry the load when the offense stalls. And in this game, that's exactly what happened. It wasn't pretty though. Let's be honest. Even Paul Denner Jr. summed it up best. The defense saved the day. The win was gritty, the kind that doesn't go on highlight reels, but builds trust in the locker room. Final numbers don't lie. Cincinnati took home the W because the defense answered when the offense couldn't. And that brings us to Joe Burrow. 113 passing yards. That's it. Shocking, right? Once again, Cleveland seemed to have his number, especially in season openers. Burrow's struggles early in the year have become a trend, and it's a big reason why the Bengals haven't always started hot in the win column. It's not all on him. Pressure, rust, and strong defenses play a part. But when your quarterback is that limited, someone else has to step up. Thankfully, this time it was the defense. Still, there were some bright spots offensively. Chase Brown flashed early, showing the kind of burst that made him a preseason fan favorite. Plays like that matter, because they hint at what this offense could become once Burrow finds his rhythm again. At the end of the day, was it ugly? Absolutely. But was it the kind of ugly win that can spark confidence moving forward? 100%. Early on, Chase Brown looked sharp, hitting lanes with real purpose and giving the Bengals some balance on offense. But as the game wore on, Cleveland adjusted. Whether it was better gap discipline or simply wearing down the line, the Browns found a way to bottle him up. That shift exposed something important. Cincinnati still doesn't have a run game that can consistently close out tight battles. Think about it. When you're locked in a low-scoring game, the ability to pound the ball, chew up the clock, and control possession is everything. That wasn't there on Sunday. Instead, the offense stalled, and the defense had to bail them out, once again proving to be the difference maker. Still, there were bright spots in the passing game. Noah Fant deserves a lot of credit. Burrow may not have had his best day statistically, but when it came to finding Fant in space, it worked. Fant came away with the team's only receiving touchdown, showing exactly why his versatility can matter in this offense. Give him room to run, and he can turn small gains into impact plays. So yes, the offense had flashes, but overall, it wasn't nearly enough. Ugly is the right word, and Zac Taylor admitted as much afterward. He pointed straight to the turnover battle as the real deciding factor. And he was right. Cleveland had their chance late, driving into what looked like potential game-winning territory. But the Bengals' defense stood tall again, sealing the win with a critical interception. That single moment summed up the entire day. When the offense sputtered, the defense carried them across the finish line. One of the biggest highlights of the entire game came late, when DJ Ivey made the kind of play that instantly swings momentum. The ball popped into the air, and Ivey laid out with a full extension dive, securing it cleanly before it even touched the ground. No doubt about it, that was a turnover that electrified every Bengals fan watching. Plays like that aren't just lucky. They're about being ready and locked in at the right moment. That interception, along with the earlier turnover, completely changed the direction of the game. The Browns were moving the ball and looked poised to score. Without those takeaways, this might have been a very different outcome. But when the pressure was highest, Cincinnati's defense responded. They bent, yes, but they refused to break. Of course, it wasn't all perfect. Missed tackles popped up here and there, and Zac Taylor himself acknowledged that those mistakes need to be cleaned up. But here's the thing, it's only week 1. Early season football is about finding flaws, correcting them, and building momentum. If this defense can sharpen up as the season rolls on, the ceiling looks even higher. And here's a stat that proves just how strong this group really was. Cleveland finished with 24 rushing attempts, but not a single run longer than 5 yards. Think about that. A team that wants to bully opponents on the ground was completely neutralized. That's not just good enough. That's elite run defense. Forcing the Browns to put the game on the arm of Joe Flacco, at his age, was exactly the formula Cincinnati wanted. You live with whatever he does through the air, but you cannot let the ground game steamroll you. And on this day, the Bengals drew that line in the sand and held it. And here's the key takeaway moving forward. Make opponents one-dimensional. In today's NFL, even in a passing league, if you erase the run game, you control the tempo. The Bengals did that against Cleveland's offense. But ironically, in the second half, Cincinnati's own rushing attack completely stalled. Chase Brown, so sharp early, started getting stuffed on nearly every attempt. Part of that was execution, but part of it was play calling. And this is where some frustration creeps in. Zac Taylor is a strong leader, but there are times when his play sheet feels predictable. Late in the game, the calls looked telegraphed. Everyone in the stadium could sense when a run was coming. Running out the clock makes sense, but you can't be so obvious about it, especially when the defense is already clamping down on your backfield. Even Joe Burrow's usage raised questions. Early on, the quick screens and short passes kept Cleveland off balance, but that approach vanished as the game wore on. Instead, Burrow was holding the ball longer, and the results were brutal. One drive ended with 3 consecutive sacks. That's not just bad luck. That's a failure to adjust. And once again, Myles Garrett was the nightmare. He might as well have had his own locker in the Bengals' backfield. Even when he didn't record the sack himself, he was collapsing the pocket and creating opportunities for his teammates. Cincinnati has to figure out how to keep him from wrecking games. Because right now, Garrett continues to be a one-man wrecking crew whenever these two teams meet. That sequence where Joe Burrow was nearly sacked into a safety summed up the offensive struggles. Back-to-back sacks on first and second down, followed by third down chaos. It was the kind of drive that makes you shake your head. Burrow held the ball too long, and the offense paid the price. Those are the details this team has to clean up on film. Yes, the players need to execute better, but coaching plays a role too. The conservative approach late in the game felt predictable, and against a pass rush like Cleveland's, you can't afford to keep Burrow standing in the pocket waiting for deep routes to develop. The smarter move? Quick hitters, short passes. Just keep the chains moving and don't give Myles Garrett the chance to wreck another series. That's the adjustment Cincinnati has to make moving forward. Not every game is going to be about explosive plays to Jamar Chase or T. Higgins. Some games, survival football is enough. Get the ball out fast, control possession, and lean on the defense when you have to. And speaking of the defense, this unit deserves all the credit. They embodied that bend but don't break mentality and delivered stops exactly when the team needed them most. It wasn't flawless. Missed tackles and shaky moments showed up, but the result speaks for itself. They carried the Bengals to 1-0. So here we are. One game in, Cincinnati is sitting atop the AFC North standings with momentum in their pocket. It wasn't pretty, but it was gritty. And sometimes that's even more valuable. If this defense continues to play with that edge, and if the offense can clean up its execution, the Bengals will be a dangerous team to deal with. Now it's your turn. What stood out most to you in this win? The good, the bad, the ugly. It's all part of the story. But one thing is certain. The Bengals are undefeated to start the season, and that's something worth celebrating.